Hello everyone. Today is part one of Part Studios. And so the basic stuff we're going to cover is the general workflow for how we use Part Studios in Onshape, and then some really basic details around how to use sketches and tools like Extrude and Revolve. And so, firstly, to go through the workflow, it goes something like this. First, we have a sketch, and you don't have to follow along right now. This is just me getting through something fast so you can see what we're making. And so in a sketch, you're going to make some kind of 2D shape, and then use one of these extrude or one of these other tools to turn that 2D shape into a 3D shape. And now that you have a 3D shape, you can then modify it in some of these ways. So if we wanted, we could chamfer the edges of this top face, and that would modify the geometry a little bit if this is what you were looking for in your part. And so either way, this is just a demo, not something you would functionally use probably, but just to show you how you go about using Part Studio. And so with that out of the way, let's get rid of these steps here just by going into this left bar and deleting them. And that will get rid of those actions we've done. And so now we are starting back with a clean slate.
So now that we've walked through the general workflow for Part Studios, we can try to make something functional. In this case, on the right hand side here, I have a schematic for a 8mm Rex standoff that is 43 millimeters long. And we're going to try to make this at least to the point where it can be functionally used in CAD. And so the first step here would be to make a sketch of the cross section of the standoff. So uh, for this, we can use the front plane. So I can hit sketch, and here it now blues out the sketch plane like button, I guess. And so here I can now select a plane to be used. So I can select the front plane, uh, face off on it using the view cube, square off, and now I can look at it head on. So first thing we want to do maybe would be to make the 4mm center hole. So for that, I can use the center point circle tool up here. So I can click on that or uh, use the shortcut C. So click once to get a center point, and then we can just click again at some arbitrary size. We want this to be 4mm though. So um, we see that we have this blue box here, and we can type in any number. I'm going to just type 4 millimeters, and when we hit enter, it'll resize the thing to be the size we said it should be. And now I'm just going to zoom in so we can see this a little more clearly. So once we have that done, we can go ahead with the next step. We want also a 7mm hex as part of our 8mm Rex profile. So we can use the inscribe polygon tool here. So just click on that, and the inscribe polygon works similarly to a circle, where we select a center point and then drag out. And you can see that this actually snapped me to the X or the Y axes, which is pretty handy if we just want everything to be fully constrained. And so uh, for this I'm just going to go ahead and click again, and it's just giving me an option. How many sides do I want it to have? I'm going to leave it at 6. Click again, and now it has made this. So this time I'm not going to add the dimension from here. So we can just exit out of the inscribe polygon tool either by clicking on it again or by hitting escape on the keyboard. So now, as you can see, this is actually blue as opposed to the center circle, which is black. And that's because this polygon is not fully constrained. Whereas the circle, I can't drag it or anything, right? It won't let me do that because it is fully constrained. I have applied some constraint on it in every direction, so it physically cannot move. Whereas this polygon can be resized. And so to fix that, we're going to need to use a dimension tool. So up here, either click on it or hit D on your keyboard. And now we can select this inside circle and say that we want it to be 7 millimeters in size. And now it'll make the inscribed polygon be 7 millimeters flat to flat. Now the last step is to make the 8 millimeter round portion. And for that, we can just use another center point circle. So select that, select the center point, any arbitrary size, and then just type in 8 millimeters. Hit enter, and now there we have it. Our full cross section of the 8 millimeter Rex standoff. And you can see there are actually some uh, extra sections of the sketch that we don't actually need, but um, they're just there. We don't have to use them later. So we can just let these be here. We don't have to delete them or do anything like that. So with that out of the way, we can confirm the sketch and it will take us back to the main Part Studio interface. So now that we're done with our sketch, we can move on to extruding out our standoff. And so the first thing we're going to want to do is extrude the outer section. So the outer section, firstly, we have to select the extrude tool, which either we can click here or use the shortcut Shift E. So I'll just click, and now there are a couple of options here. There's solid, surface, and thin. And to be honest, uh, you almost never end up using surface and thin. It's normally solid. And then under that, we have a new, add, remove, and intersect. And so for now, we're just going to use new and then later add. But remove is pretty much what you would expect it to be, and intersect uh, is also like surface and thin, not very commonly used. So you don't really have to worry about intersect for the time being. For now, we're just going to extrude a new part because we don't have anything to add to. So here we can see that the faces and sketch regions to extrude is blued out, so we need to select something. So we're going to select this outer section here. And so we can just click on it and now it'll select it. So now, just to give us a better view, I'm going to switch to the right side so we can look at how this is extruding from the side. So now we have a couple of options here for extruding. We have blind, which is essentially that we just give it a length to extrude and it'll just extrude that. And then we also have a couple of other options. This is essentially up to the next object. Up to face lets you select a face you want it to go up to, and then so on. Uh, and for now, we're just going to use blind because it's really simple, and we don't have any face or thing we can have the extrude go up to. Also, we have a couple of options here, but really the one we need right now is symmetric because we want this to be centered on this uh, sketch plane, isn't really. So if I unselect symmetric, it only extends on one side. If I select symmetric, it extends on both sides, which is just handy. So now I can select it to be 40, extrude to 43 millimeters. And so now when I hit confirm, we can now measure the length from here to here, and it'll show up as 43 millimeters down here. And so this is just something handy you can do is if you want to ever measure the distance between two things, you can just select them and it'll show distance. If you want more details, you can click on this and it'll give you a whole list of things you can use for your distance measurements. So anyway, I'm just gonna deselect those. And so now the last thing we have to do is um, also extrude part of the screw hole because as you probably saw in the diagram, the screw holes actually don't extend the whole way through. They only extend about 9 millimeters on each side, so 9 millimeters from here and 9 millimeters from here. So to do that, we're going to have to do another extrude. So we hit extrude, but oh, the sketch is not here. So we're going to need to make it appear because when you use the sketch, it automatically gets hidden. So if we click the show sketch, it'll open it and now it lets us select the sketch. Or, well, if we don't have good access to it, we can also hide the part and then click on the sketch and then make the part reappear, which is pretty handy. And so from here, uh, what we essentially want as the length of the sketch, I'm just going to hide this for now, is we want it to be uh, 9 millimeters from each side of this this main standoff body here. So 9 millimeters from this side and 9 millimeters from this side. And so how we can do that is we can have it be symmetric again, and then have it be 43 millimeters minus 18, 9 from each side. And so that gives us 25 millimeters, and now it uh, will extrude symmetrically. And so as you can see, if I hit confirm, it has now filled up the space in those areas. And that's about it for making the standoff. So we now have essentially a functional CAD model of this standoff. So now that we have the standoff done, we're like, oh, that's great. We have a standoff, but wait, we still have to make that 1-inch ball bearing that, I didn't talk about earlier. Uh, and so to do that, uh, we want to actually make that bearing before we make this part, before we made it. So we essentially need to go back in time. And thankfully, there's a tool for this in Onshape called the rollback bar. So here we can actually drag this before certain actions were taken, and we can essentially travel back in time. So if I move this before extrude 1, you can now see that there is no hole, there's just a hole in the middle of this thing, right? And if I move back even further, we can get rid of both extrudes, and now there isn't an object at all. But we're going to go all the way back to prehistoric times when there was nothing. And so we just want to make a a sphere here. And so to do that, we're going to use the Revolve tool. And what that entails is uh, a face or sketch region to revolve and a revolve axis. And so if you can't visualize how this is going to work out, that's fine. Just follow along with me. You'll see how it works. So I'm just going to make uh, my sketch on the front plane, select it, and because we just want a 1-inch sphere, 1-inch diameter sphere, I'm just going to make a circle a little ways up from this origin, just so we don't have it intersect with the standoff. I'm going to select in the middle and then just make my circle be 1 inch. There we go. And it doesn't matter that it's unconstrained. It's fine because we're just doing this for laughs. It's not really necessary. And uh, it doesn't really matter if the circle moves around anyway. And the last thing, because this is our face that we are revolving, but we also need a revolve axis. And so for that, we're just going to make another line here. So just the line tool, and we can make a line going smack dab in the middle of this circle. Hit escape, and now we have our circle with its revolve axis. So now we can confirm the sketch and move on to the revolve. So I hit revolve, and again we have all these options, the same options we had at the top of the extrude dialog box. And for now, like before, we're just going to use solid and new because those are really the most common things we use. And so firstly, to select the faces and sketch regions, for now, we're just going to select this half circle because that's really all we need. And then the revolve axis, we can just select this line going down the middle of the circle. And it says that this revolve is full, which means it's going to rotate the entirety of the way around the revolve axis. And so now, uh, when I confirm the revolve, we now have this very beautiful sphere. So with that done, we can now head back to the present, use the rollback bar, drag it down, and we now have these two parts, our inch diameter ball bearing and our 43 millimeter standoff. And that's all for this video. I hope you learned the basics of Part Studios, how to sketch, how to use the Extrude tool, how to use the Revolve tool, and the general workflow for using these different tools. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video.